There's something about January here in South Italy that makes it one of my favourite months of the year living here. Now, it's easy for me to say at the moment. I'm currently in Mondello in Palermo and it feels like, I don't know, late spring. It's beautiful. But even in other parts of South Italy, I actually think January can be a really, really special month. And in this video, I'm going to share with you just why that is.
January is quiet in South Italy. It's low season for tourism. And apart from the very beginning of the month, when there may still be a few tourists on the tail end of the Christmas celebrations, which officially end here on the 6th of January, after that, you definitely notice a difference. You feel towns and villages as they are meant to be with the locals, and you really get to experience the heart and soul of a place without it being overrun with tourists. So it definitely has a different kind of feeling.
This is why I think it's so important to try to visit Italy at different times of the year. So trying to come here, I would suggest maybe in the winter and in the summer, just to get the most extreme contrast, because generally speaking, autumn and spring, they don't really feel very different in terms of how the country is, but definitely in the summer and in the winter, they are the most extreme seasons of the year where you will really notice a difference in terms of how your particular town or city feels in South Italy. Like for example, here now, Mondello is beautiful, but if you were to come here in July and August, it does not look like this, it does not feel like this, and even the locals do their best to keep away. So really and truly, this would be my best piece of advice to you. Do your best to try and visit Italy in winter and the summer, to really try and get a feel for what it can be like to live in those places at those particular times of year.
Tied into that, and the reason why it's so important to see the difference, is that if you only visit South Italy in the summer, you could be forgiven for thinking that certain towns and villages have a thriving, active community all year round because of the sheer number of people that you see. However, January really tells you the truth and the reality of what individual towns and cities are like here in South Italy. Because what you have to remember is, depending on where in South Italy you're interested in moving to, a lot of the seaside locations will be people's second homes, holiday homes, bed and breakfast locations, hotels. And so when you are in low season, you are going to find lots of homes that are shuttered up and empty, and that families only really come down to use them during holiday times. And so that does impact what a community can feel like in different parts of South Italy. You have to also remember that certain businesses are seasonal. And this means that they're not necessarily going to be open year round, and that they are probably only going to be open from Easter onwards. And what this means is that you might have a couple of months of the year every year where certain businesses are closed. These tend to be either restaurants, ice cream bars, things like this. But again, this all impacts a town or city and its feel and vibe. So this is another reason why you need to really come and experience South Italy in January, just to get a more balanced perspective. Because if you want to be living in a location that is thriving, you may not necessarily really understand that in the summer months if you come here, because you cannot understand who are tourists and who actually live there on a long-term basis, and what that place is going to feel like when everyone eventually goes home. Now, of course, weather is another key aspect to consider when it comes to January in South Italy. Now, as I've said before, I'm in Mondello in Palermo, and Palermo, generally speaking, has milder winters compared to other parts of South Italy. I definitely remember the winters back in Salerno being a lot colder than what they are here. And consider there were actually people in the sea here for New Year's Day celebrations, which would never happen back in Salerno. So there is a different climate here in Sicily for sure. But I will say, generally speaking, it is a bit cooler and colder depending on exactly where you are, and some places experience rain Other places snow, particularly high up and the higher altitudes. But generally speaking, it depends where you are. It can be bleak. In Amalfi, I would say January and February, for example, are pretty bleak months. But as you can see, when the sun is out, it's beautiful. So it's a real mixed bag in January for the weather. You definitely need to wrap up more. And depending on what country you're coming from, you might find it to be a relief, like coming from the UK here to Sicily in the winter feels like spring. But it's not as cold as other parts of Italy can be at this time of year. So I would say that South Italy in the winter, generally speaking, especially in January, is more bearable than other parts of Italy. I think for me personally, having lived in South Italy now for 6 and a bit years, January has become one of my favourite months of the year for the reasons that I've really mentioned in this video. Less tourists means that you really do get to enjoy the town and city that you live in, especially here in Palermo, which tends to be a very popular tourist destination. I definitely notice it more in these months when there are fewer tourists. It just feels like the city breathes a bit. And trust me, when you live in a place which is a popular tourist destination, it is nice to have a bit of downtime and to really get to enjoy your own city for yourself. I will also say that I appreciate this time of year as well for the milder winters, especially here in Sicily. And I just like how real South Italy feels in January. It changes as the year goes on, absolutely. In the summer, for me, South Italy is unrecognizable, just for the sheer number of people and for the fact that everybody tends to have the same holiday at the same time. It's just not as nice a place to be as it is right here, right now, when South Italy is really allowed to be just what it is. And I think for this reason, January for me is not only the best time to come and visit South Italy, but also it is the realest time to come and see this particular part of Italy, especially if you intend to move here on a long-term basis. I'll see you in the next video.